Many people ask the question, what is the best handgun caliber? Greg Ellifritz wanted a definitive answer to this question, so he did a study of real-world shootings. I believe the best metric for effectiveness in this study is the percentage of shootings that were fatal. Obviously, people can die in the hospital after the shooting takes place. This doesn't change the fact that if someone is shot with a very effective caliber, they have a greater chance of death due to the damage done. All of the handgun calibers and the .22s are equal in this category. It's the centerfire rifles and shotguns that are much more effective. I think it's important to mention that fatal wounds don't always immediately incapacitate, which is why you can see videos of people taking multiple handgun rounds to the chest and are seemingly unaffected. It's only brain or spine injuries that immediately incapacitate. When looking at the failure to incapacitate category, we see that all calibers except .22s are roughly the same. I believe that .22s are doing worse because expanding .22 rounds can very easily underpenetrate and not hit vital organs. The other calibers are likely roughly the same because failure to incapacitate could be the attacker taking lethal damage and not stopping for psychological reasons, or it could be that the bullet simply did not hit a vital organ. I don't believe the failure to incapacitate or average rounds until incapacitation categories are that useful because of the amount of people who were psychologically stopped, not physically stopped by the bullets. What I mean by this is that people don't want to be shot, and when people do get shot, they realize their life is in danger and will generally do something to avoid getting shot again. I have these calibers on a separate chart because Greg Ellifritz said there isn't enough data to compare them accurately to the other calibers. He has also said that the data for these calibers should be viewed with suspicion because of this small sample size. Now, the study gave us some important answers, but I still have questions, so I did my own study. I specifically wanted to know how long it took for handgun bullets of different calibers to kill through blood loss. I also wanted psychological reasons to play no role in the outcome of the shooting. I concluded to do my study about animals shot during hunting. Animals don't really understand what being shot means and don't give up for psychological reasons. Deer, for example, keep running away from the person actively shooting at them until they physically can't. Obviously, there are physical differences between animals and humans, but we can still learn a lot from the resulting data. The list of numbers that follows each caliber is the amount of time individual animals took to either die or be downed when shot. I didn't want to average the time for each caliber because that would lead people to false conclusions, as statistics sometimes do. Most of these animals died from heart or lung shots. None of them received or died from brain or spine shots. A couple of these animals took significantly longer to die. And while I can't definitively say why this is, I personally believe it is due to shot placement. Now, the conclusion I came to when I saw these results is that handgun caliber doesn't matter that much. I'll talk more about this in a minute after I give you an important frame of reference to understand these results. A living creature can keep on moving and thinking for a short while after its heart is destroyed. This is possible due to a varying amount of residual oxygen in its body. When the brain has run out of that residual oxygen, that creature dies. Small creatures like goats and sheep can have up to 7 seconds of oxygen left in their brains. Medium-sized creatures like pigs and humans can have up to 15 seconds of oxygen. By the way, it doesn't really matter what causes the total oxygen cutoff. Suffocation by CO2, heart destruction, or heart failure due to spinal damage all have the same basic outcomes. For large creatures like cattle, they can have up to 40 seconds of oxygen left in their brains. Also, if you have a limited supply of oxygen to your brain, you'll last longer. This can happen to you if you have a functioning heart but have heavy bleeding, for example. Also, handgun wounds can sometimes fail to cause external bleeding even with magnum calibers. It looks like these internal bleeding only cases take much longer to die. Unfortunately, we do not have the exact bleed-out times. Anyway, back to my conclusion that handgun caliber doesn't matter. There was no significant difference in bleed-out time between calibers. In fact, when fragmenting bullets were used in 9mm and 380 ACP, they killed in about the same time as some of the 44 and 357 shots. I make this point because I believe fragmenting bullets are very poor choices for self-defense. But what if there was a really massive difference in bullet weight and velocity, though? Clearly, we should see some difference in bleed-out time. So we have some coyotes that were shot with a light and slow 30 caliber air rifle bullet. Another coyote was shot with a fast and light 6mm bullet. And another one still was shot with a 458 SOCOM 570 grain 1000 feet per second bullet. When we compare the bleed-out time of these calibers, we can find no significant difference. This is some interesting results, which is why I'll do some more research into this subject, specifically with rifles and bows. It seems to be a common belief that powerful handgun calibers like 44 Magnum are much more effective at stopping bad guys. Some people specifically say they want a handgun that can immediately stop someone with one shot. Terms like stopping power, knockdown power, and one-shot stops are all counterproductive. Trying to make a connection between handgun caliber and the reactions people have when shot with that caliber is ridiculous. Simply put, people can have very different reactions after receiving lethal wounds. That reaction depends on the person, not the handgun caliber. People can fail to stop immediately when shot with rifle rounds, so if you really want someone to stop with one shot, make sure to hit them in the spine or brain. By the way, I'm showing you my data so you can make your own conclusions from it. The rifle caliber handguns are just a point of reference, by the way. And if you're like me and you still have questions, I'll be doing a video in the future about choosing the best handgun ammunition.